Great. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the latest in VTIC's webinar series put together by the team here at VTIC and also our digital marketing firm, Webfirm. So today we're talking about government grants and support. We can show you where to look. So lots of hot tips coming your way over the next hour. We have a cast of 4 today. I'm going to be top and tailing the webinar series. And then we have 3 special guest presenters who I'm going to introduce in a moment. But a bit of context about this webinar. So off the back of the very successful government grant briefing series run by the Chamber of Commerce, the Victorian Chamber of Commerce and Industry, we decided that it would be terrific to tailor a full hour-long session to the needs of the tourism industry around grants and support, particularly that the government can lend you. So, our 3 guest presenters today. We have Katherine Smith, who is a Senior Industry Policy Advisor at the Chamber of Commerce. She's going to be taking over directly from me to give you a bit of context around grants and support. She's then going to pass to John McDonald, who is the Assistant State Manager for Victoria with AusIndustry in their Business Services section. And then Sue Lin Kwa, who is the Strategic Engagement and Employer Mobilisation Specialist with the Department of Employment with the Australian Government, is going to take 10 minutes as well to go through a couple of the programs that they run. So Kath is going to provide some context around how grants and government support works and also some of the jargon that's used. John is going to step in and give us an overview of some of the main programs we think are particularly relevant for tourism businesses. And then Sue Lin will focus predominantly on employment-related programs. So that's the outline. Over to you, Kath, for some context setting.
Thanks, Olivia, and thank you to VTIC for having us today. So my name's Katherine Smith and I sit within the Victorian Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and for those who don't know, we sit in the same building as VTIC and we are essentially part of the same organisation, so we're a shared resource. So if you've got any questions, all of our contact details are going to be at the end of this presentation, and I understand that it will be emailed out to people who've registered for the webinar. So if you've got any questions, think of Olivia and I as the same organisation, and we can be the same resource for you if you've got any in-depth questions. So as Olivia said, we've run some briefings over the past year, and the reason for this is we find that a lot of our members find it really difficult to sort of navigate the wealth of information out there with regards to government grants and support. So what we thought we would do is try and introduce you to some physical people, although it's not quite physical at the moment, but you'll get to know them over the next hour and you'll get their contact details. And we thought it was a really important thing for you to have actual people who you can contact and who will be able to help you and take you on the journey, because it can be confusing and sometimes grants aren't for you. So to help you make sure that you are applying for the right grant or getting the right support for where your business is at this particular point in time. So we will be going through quite a lot of information today, so a bit of a warning that there will be a lot of information, but again you will get the information sent to you at the end as well, so you can look back at it through your own time. We are just covering federal government support today, but at the end of the presentation we'll also flag the other 2 tiers of government who also offer very similar services, but obviously offering different complementary programs. So we'll give you the contact details and some points so you can follow up with both the Victorian Government and your local government as well, because they're really key resources for you. So when you're looking and listening at all of these programs today, not all are going to be relevant for you, some not right now, but they might be relevant in the future, so don't feel overwhelmed by it all. The main aim, again, is to just raise awareness of what's out there and how to go and find some more information if you are interested. So as you can see from the screen, I thought I'd go through a bit of jargon that we get asked about what does that mean, and it sort of sets the scene for when you're thinking and listening to John and Sue Lynn as they're explaining their programs. So grants can generally be divided into either eligibility grants or contestability grants. Eligibility grants are where there is a set of criteria, eligibility criteria. It might be where your business is located, the sector that it operates in, or the number of employees you have. As long as you meet those criteria, you automatically can get the government support or a grant. So John's going to go through a couple, and some of Sue Lynn's are also eligibility grants. On the other side, there's also contestability grants. This is when there's a limited pool of funding and support available, and so you've got to make your best case of why that support and funding should go to you. So you've got to put a really strong business case to government to say that you deserve this funding instead of Joe Bloggs down in Traralgon or Mary Jane in Warrnambool. So that when you're thinking about that and the grants, types of grants, it'll also give you an indicator of how much time and resources to put into the application process. So contestability grants, as a rule of thumb, you're going to be putting a lot more time and effort in because you've got to win the support or funding. When you're also looking at grants, they generally fall into 4 different categories. First is investment in capital. There is going to be a couple of grants that John talks about which are in this space, but the state government does have a lot as well. Second is about when you're looking at boosting the productivity of your staff. And a lot of the support that Sue Lynn will talk about is in this space. Next is about increasing your business competitiveness. So you're in this particular market now and you're servicing this particular sector, but what happens if you want to move into a completely different sector and diversify, or you want to make your supply chain more productive or efficient? So there's grants and support around business competitiveness. And then finally, there's a lot of support to go international. And sometimes in the tourism sector, I think we sometimes think that exporting is all about goods, but it can be services. So a lot of, John's got quite a few examples of services, tourism services industries who do amazingly well with international markets and international visitors. And that means you can still be eligible for those export grants and support. The next section over on the right-hand side of the page is just some tips, I suppose, when businesses ask us, how do we do this? What are the tips to get into to make us successful? And I'm sure both John and Sue Lynn will say that then they're not trying to trip you up. They are there to help you. And so if you've got any questions, always go to the department and the area of government who are responsible for that grant. However, these are some of our sort of rule of thumb things just to keep in mind when you're looking at the grants. Really double check the eligibility criteria. Again, for example, with that export, don't write it off just thinking that you're not eligible. Double check with that government department. Secondly, just respond to the merit criteria. Often grants will outline what they're looking for. There's normally 4 or 5 different areas of criteria, particularly in the contestability grants, and they'll often tell you which ones are the most important. So there'll be a weighting to them. Not always, and that gives you an indication of how much effort that you should be putting into each of the merit criteria. Keep it clear and simple and back it up with as much evidence as you can. I know that VTIC sends around lots of survey information in their communications. John will talk about the Australian Bureau of Statistics, which is all free data that you can use to back up your argument. The local councils are a fantastic source of information, local information, so they can help you navigate and understand and apply that data or information to your particular business or your area or your sector. The third point around resource considerations, government grants aren't free money. They do require work, and I'm sure both John and Sue Lynn will talk to you. You've got to make sure that the grant is in line with your business objectives. Don't change your business objectives just to go and get a grant. They have a look at all of these grants that we talk about today and think, will this help me overcome a barrier within my organisation that I've been trying to overcome? Because it is time consuming, it is resource intensive. But at the end of the day, if it is in line with your business objectives, it is, in often many cases, actual cash that will go towards your business. And unlike a bank, you don't have to pay it back. There is a lot of paperwork, but you won't have to pay it back. And that money is essentially taxpayer dollars. It's your and my hard-earned taxpayer dollars. So you've really got to make the case for why the government should give it to you and make sure that you're not going to run off somewhere and spend it on the things that for personal reasons instead of for your business. Keep an eye out as well that just if you've applied for a grant in the past, it doesn't mean that you won't be eligible for another grant, or if you've applied for a grant with the state government, it doesn't mean that you won't be eligible for a grant with the federal government. Always double check. And some of the grants you can actually access multiple times. So one in particular that John will talk about is the Export Market Development Grant, which you can apply for up to 8 times in the life of your business. And then my final point is that the people that we're going to introduce you today, they're all part of a broader team who offer free support as a first step for you to understand whether these are the right grants and support for you, and use them. And they're absolutely lovely. So,
I can vouch for that.
Yeah. And obviously Olivia and I as well within the Chamber and VTIC as well, we're also a resource for you. So on that note, I am going to pass over to John MacDonald, who will go through the federal government support that AusIndustry offers.
Great, over to you, John.
Thank you, Kath, and thank you, Olivia. Hello, everybody. So, AusIndustry, we sometimes hear that not everyone has heard of us. We try not to let that get to us too much. Perhaps I can explain who we are by explaining who we're not. Many of you would have heard of AusTrade. So that's the Australian Government Trade Commission that helps business grow, improve, become more prosperous and internationally competitive by exporting. So what we do in AusIndustry is do all of those things, offer programs, services, advice, again, to help your business innovate, grow, become more competitive, but we do that domestically. And we do that with information, advice, and grants. And the first thing I want to say to you today is that the vast majority of what I'll be talking about, and in fact even Sue Lynn's presentation, you can find this information on business.gov.au. And I'd really encourage you to bookmark that and treat that as your go-to site for business advice and support. It's got web chat, it's got a phone line linked to that, 13 28 46, and as you can see on your screen, that's open 8 a.m. to 8 p.m, except public holidays, Monday to Friday. It's based here in Melbourne, the call centre, and we have what we call both general and specialist business advisors. So depending on the inquiry that you have about the grant, the program, the advice that's on there, you'll be escalated to a specialist business advisor. And these are people who've had their own businesses themselves for at least 10 years or more. The other thing I wanted to say to you today is that there are quite a lot more grants available on business.gov.au that we have time to mention today. We've only got 20 minutes, or I've only got 20 minutes today. There's a lot more out there. So if you look at this screen, you will see pretty much, even though I've moved the shapes around to fit into a PowerPoint slide, these are the tiles that you'll see when you open business.gov.au. And for us, it's very much about supporting you through the business life cycle. So from thinking about a business to deciding, yep, I really want to do this, I really want to start a business, to running that business, and how do I do that better? How do I grow my business? How do I take it to the next level? And finally, at the end of the business life cycle, how do you exit the business? If you look at the right-hand side of the screen, you'll see there's a tile there about grants, assistance, and support. You can search for this information by the industry sector that you're in, tourism, obviously, the region that you belong to, so it might be a geographical region, or what you want to do. What is it that you're looking for support to achieve? It could be that you want to recruit trainees. It could be that you want to take on new staff. It could be that you want to invest in capital equipment or expenditure, those types of things. You can see a couple of other little tiles there. As I said, there's a chat thing, and the really important thing that I'd suggest you do is subscribe. We regularly send out newsletters. In fact, I think the next one's going out tomorrow with useful advice and information. But also, the important reason for doing that is that the grant landscape changes all the time. So a grant may be announced, and a particular grant might be open for a month or 2 months, and then that grant has closed until the next round, but another grant comes along. So if you're not up to date, you won't be aware of what's changing in your environment. So really strongly suggest that you bookmark business.gov.au. If, for example, you see on this slide, what opens up for you when you click on grants, assistance, and other support? And you can see there all the things from starting your business, marketing, sales, importing, exporting, a whole range of different opportunities. Can I also suggest that if you are thinking of applying for grants, the very process of filling out an application form and telling someone else about why you think you deserve a grant, what is it that your business is trying to achieve, how your business will benefit, how the region will benefit, how many more staff will be employed, those types of things, is a tremendous opportunity for you to think about what is it that your business is really trying to do and how will you get to that next stage. Okay, so advice and support. Our agency funds what we call the Small Business Advisory Service. And these are organisations spread right across Australia, but in our case, 4 specialist providers in Victoria, to provide you with low cost, very low cost, but expert advice on the sorts of things that you might want assistance with to run your small business. You might be a great marketer with a natural affinity for reaching out to your customers, but writing a business plan may not be your strength, or vice versa. So these sorts of organisations can help you with those types of things. And very quickly, the Small Business Mentoring Service, who the Victorian Government also uses, and they're the people who run the small business bus that perhaps you've seen driving around Victoria. Box Hill Institute, Geelong Chamber of Commerce, and in Northern Victoria, the Sunraysia Rural Counselling Service. Again, as you can see the web link on the page, everything available at business.gov.au. More advice, particularly for starting out. ABLIS, the Australian Business Licensing and Information Service, basically helps you find and understand all of the things that you need from a regulatory point of view. Licenses, permits, approvals, regulations, codes of practice, standards, and so on. You can find them pretty much all at the Australian Business Licence and Information Service, again through business.gov.au. Kath mentioned the Australian Bureau of Statistics. We all know about the census data that we all contribute to, that one night of the year every several years or so. But think about the business data that's out there. If you're trying to reach out to different types of businesses, either as customers or suppliers or even partners, wouldn't it be great to understand the economic and social demography of your region or the target group that you're trying to reach? A lot of this information, such as social trends, how people are spending their money these days, what they're into, is available on the ABS website. They've also got a fantastic hotline that's very helpful, 1300 135 070. A lot of information is free, but some of the more detailed reports you do need to pay for. But that's your call. That might be a good strategic business investment decision. I've also, at the bottom of the slide, put some information that comes out once a year from Tourism Research Australia. They've just put out their Tourism Investment Monitor report for the current year, 2017. As I say, once a year, and what that covers is the number and value of tourism projects in the investment pipeline across Australia. And if you're aware of those, that might help you tap into that market. So, for example, the Geelong Convention Centre, $100 million project. The Melbourne Olympic Parks redevelopment, $340 million almost. Moonee Valley Racecourse upgrade and development, $1.4 billion. Melbourne Airport, the new third runway, $500 million. These can all be useful bits of information depending on the market that you're trying to reach. So have a look at that report. Okay, the ATO. We all love the ATO. Let me tell you that they are not interested in hounding you, hassling you, chasing you down. What they'd rather do is for you to understand your business obligations in relation to tax, GST, superannuation, PAYG, and those sorts of things. So that's a screenshot from their website. These are all links that will take you to various pages on the ATO website, and you can see there that they have quite a range of services that are on their website for small businesses. This is the more interesting page, I think. They also have a fantastic facility which helps you benchmark your business against other businesses of a similar nature. So, I know it's not strictly a tourism-related business, but if you're a florist, for example, you can benchmark your business against other florists around Australia. Isn't that a great piece of information to help you understand whether, compared to other businesses in your sector, you're doing well or above average? There's a business performance check tool and a business viability tool as well. These are tremendous resources.
John, can I interrupt you there for a second with a question? So when you're talking about benchmarking and small business benchmarking, do you know what kinds of specific pieces of information they can benchmark you against other kinds of businesses in your area? What are they looking at?
In general terms, Olivia, it's income, size of business,
right.
Volume. So it's financial data.
Okay, that's right. And size of business being employees, that kind of thing as well?
Where they have that information. I mean, the tax office, more typically, of course, you're declaring to the tax office what your business income is.
Yes.
They're taxing you on that basis. So they've got a sense of the overall competitiveness of that particular business sector and style of business. I also want to point out that, like business.gov.au, you can register for their small business newsletters, and they call theirs the ATO Small Business Newsroom. I, for example, register for that, and their latest magazine came out this morning. So, for example, they're about to run a webinar on understanding FBT if you're in the business and entertainment sector, which again might be relevant to you. Another one that perhaps really would be relevant, and Sue Lynn will talk about hiring staff, is if you hire people over the holiday season, which you would in the tourist sector, what do you need to know? Whether it's 1 day or longer, what are the tax implications and what do you need to be doing about that? Okay, here's another Australian government initiative for businesses and really relevant for your sector. Getting online. Hopefully everyone out there is already online, but if you're not, here is a special service to help your particular business get online and sell to the world. So there are digital business kits that help you embrace the world of digital business, with separate kits for restaurants, catering, art, recreation, and so on. Again, really relevant. And if you look at the wording on this slide here, I won't repeat all of the figures there, but the Chinese Singles Day Festival, Guanguanjie, I hope I've pronounced that correctly.
Very good, John, yeah. Sounded good.
Is now the largest online shopping day on the planet. And one of the really important things about this is that young, cashed up, millennial Chinese singles are not just buying goods online, but they're buying experiences. They want to travel as young Australians travel. It's almost a rite of passage for young Australians to head off overseas at some stage and go to Asia, go to Europe, go somewhere else. It's exactly the same, increasingly, with young, single Chinese people. And believe me, if you look at those figures, do they have purchasing power? So there are real opportunities for you to sell your tourist experiences internationally. Don't underestimate what we have to offer the world. Okay, so I talked right at the beginning how we, as in AusIndustry, is not Austrade, but now I'm going to talk about some of the services that Austrade does have. So, for example, Kath mentioned export marketing development grants. You can see the rules there, that as long as you're spending $15,000 or more promoting your business overseas, and that might be attending an international trade show, marketing activity that you're spending overseas to promote your business experience or tourism experience, you can claim up to 50% of the expenses over and above that 15 grand, and you can apply for that up to 8 times. And the other thing about this grant is that it's virtually the only grant that I can think of that you can claim for retrospectively. Let me give you a couple of tourism sector examples. SeaWorld on the Gold Coast. They've got, as you can imagine, one of these luxury, state-of-the-art whale watching vessels that sails around, and you can watch the humpback whales. They are promoting their program of visits, those experiences internationally, and they're a strong user of export market development grants. So too are the Sydney Harbour Bridge climb people. Having done that experience, I can tell you that it's a phenomenal experience up there. It's not just the view, but it's looking at the internals of this fabulous bridge that's about 80 years old. And my understanding is that places in Victoria like Sovereign Hill are also very, very active in promoting that whole gold rush experience to the world. Next thing you'll see on the slide there is that Austrade fund advisors. As we fund the small business advisors, Austrade fund theirs. And one of the best going around is Lena Neal. And she's, you can see her details there. She is sort of outplaced with RDV, which is our equivalent in the Victorian Government. Good place to start and get information, particularly if you're just wanting to take those first steps on your export journey. The next thing that Austrade offer, which are a fantastic initiative, are landing pads. So what the Australian government has done through Austrade, have purchased these opportunities for people to spend 3 months or 90 days in some key places around the world. You'll see them there: Berlin, San Fran, Shanghai, Singapore and Tel Aviv, to immerse yourself with similar and like-minded people. And there have been some great companies in the tourism sector who've taken advantage of this. So far, Austrade have offered 116 companies the opportunity to spend time at a landing pad. 40 have already completed their time there. And let me give you an example of one company. Hip Flask, an event discovery platform connecting audiences to the event industry through a socially connective and adaptive recommendation engine. So a technology-based solution to connect your business with your potential customers, to make it easier for them. They're the sorts of things that Austrade are looking to support.
John,
not a business as usual type of thing, but something really out there and innovative.
John, I've got a question here. It's come from Jo while we're on this slide. It's about the EMDG grants, and she asks, what about EMDG for smaller businesses that don't necessarily have the larger marketing budgets of, say, SeaWorld? Is there anything for smaller operator export support that you guys know of?
It might be worth looking at the Victorian Government website, which is business.vic.gov.au. So, for example, the Victorian Government has a lot of international trade expos where they will take Victorian-based businesses overseas to meet buyers and opportunities in an overseas environment. So they could be taking groups to China or India or wherever. Not so much in terms of funding, no, Olivia, but support. I think Kath wants to jump in there as well.
They also do inbound trade missions because they've recognised it is very expensive for a small business to dedicate enough time and resources to go overseas. So they are trying to promote inbound delegations, and I know they did one in the food industry. Also local government, I know that if it is very specific to where you're geographically located, but the City of Melbourne offers export-related grants for very small businesses. They're very much targeting the startup and very small businesses.
Yeah, great point, Kath, and that's a good opportunity to mention local government. Right around Victoria, we've got local government authorities and shires and councils. Look at your council website. Do a search in there for the Economic Development Team and connect with them. And they're the people who can connect you with us in AusIndustry, the Victorian Government, or other sources of information, advice and support. Okay, here's a great opportunity to promote your business. If you've got a high-profile business where you've got your customers coming into your business environment or experiencing your tourism offer, you want them to see who you are. And this is your opportunity to promote that with your corporate uniform. Through our department, AusIndustry, this helps you save costs on non-compulsory occupational clothing. So for example, if you're able to claim FBT on any contributions you as an employer make to your uniform. So if you're doing fishing tours or helicopter flights and you've got your company logo on your on the blouse, on the bomber jackets, on the wind sheeter, you can claim that under FBT. Or if you're asking staff to make a contribution to those costs of the rental, purchase or maintenance of that uniform, then they can claim those costs against their own tax return. So if it's good enough for RECV, who are using that program of ours, good enough for your business too. This is a great service, the Personal Property Securities Register. A bit confusing, but what it offers is terrific. Let's suppose, and I've got a nice looking fishing charter boat there on screen. Boats are apparently treated like motor vehicles. They have VIN numbers. So if you were to buy a second-hand boat, it's going to be a lot cheaper for you than having something purpose-built or buying it brand new. Same might apply to an off-road vehicle if you're doing off-road tours. Wouldn't it be good to know that the person that you're buying it from legally owns it, that it hasn't been stolen, it's debt-free, it's not listed for repossession? For a massive $3.40, you can find out who the proper owner is and whether it's okay for you to go ahead with that purchase. Similarly, if you're selling goods on consignment, those goods are protected under the PPESR register until the potential buyer has made all of the payments. So a great opportunity. This is our #1 program. As I said at the very beginning of the presentation, it's our goal to help Australian companies get better, get smarter, be more innovative. And the R&D tax incentive is our way of doing that. in conjunction with the ATO. This is what we call an entitlement program. So if you meet the definition of doing R&D or research and development and the other requirements that we have, which I'll talk about on the next slide, you can apply for the R&D tax incentive and you will receive that through the ATO. So what are those things? Typically, you need to be spending about 20 grand a year on R&D. And you can see there, the refundable and non-refundable offsets that you can apply for. Certainly for most SMEs, a 43.5% refundable tax offset. We've got an online eligibility tool so you can test what it is that you're doing, whether it meets that legal definition of R&D. And very simply, R&D is about taking your business or taking your research and development from an unknown proposition and testing it out. So if you already know that you add chemical X to chemical Y, what will happen? That's not R&D. But if you don't know what will happen if you mix this compound with another compound or develop a piece of software that hasn't been tried and tested before, that can be R&D. Okay. Just finishing off my little segment now. Not only is there a website, not only is there a contact centre at 132846, but across Victoria, we've got regional managers in the east, Gippsland, the north, and the west of Victoria. There they are. They're all massively good-looking people, and they'd love to hear from you. They want to know what your business needs are, and they can help put you in contact with either our programs or, if it's a Victorian Government program, or your local economic development person in your shire or council. These are the people with the links and the networks. So thanks for listening. I hope some of that's been helpful. And don't forget, there is a lot more that's out there on business.gov.au. And don't just look once. Keep a regular eye on that for different things that come along.
Terrific, John.
Thanks,
Thank you
Olivia.
so much. Lots of support there from AusIndustry. I'm now going to hand over to Sue-Lyn Clark from the Department of Employment to take us through the next 10 minutes. Over to you, Sue-Lyn.
Thanks, Olivia. Morning, everyone. Today, I'm going to touch on the programs and supports available to you if you're looking to hire new staff. John's covered off the opportunities to grow your business, and hopefully that's going to lead to employing and engaging new staff. Basically, we connect job seekers with employers. Our employment service providers offer recruitment services to employers at no cost to you. Now, you're going to be able to find a local provider in your area who can match you with a local person who's looking for work. I'd like to just start by saying that for each of the programs and supports that I'm going to talk about, you don't actually need to write any applications. It's actually going to be as simple as getting in touch with your local provider, picking up the phone, or dropping down and seeing them. Alternatively, my contact details and some of my colleagues' contact details will be available, so we can also put you in touch with our local providers. So if you're looking for personalised help from a local provider, our Job Active providers will work with you to really understand the needs of your business, including the qualities that you're looking for in a new employee. You're looking for someone to take care of the screening and shortlisting, which, as we know, is probably part of the most time-consuming aspects of recruitment. Again, our providers can screen and shortlist job-ready candidates. One of the important aspects of the supports that we can provide is that our providers are also able to meet the cost of some pre-employment training and work-related equipment, for example, for new employees. This could include specific requirements for the role, such as barista training, perhaps food safety and hygiene, and also elements focused perhaps on housekeeping or customer service, particularly relevant to the tourism sector. It can be accredited training or non-accredited training if it's a requirement for the job. Again, our providers may also be able to assist with work-related licences and certificates such as an RSA. Or perhaps the new employee requires uniforms or protective clothing. Again, there's a lot of flexibility in terms of what our providers can do to help your business in looking to engage new staff. So talk to your local provider to find out exactly what supports they might be able to provide. I think probably most importantly, one of the aspects is that you'll continue to receive support once the new employee has actually started and as they settle into the job. The job active provider will be able to check in and make sure that everything's going okay and things are going smoothly and provide assistance where that's needed. For instance, they may be able to offer mentoring support to the new employee in those first few weeks. And that's going to really help you focus on running your business at that point in time. I'm actually also going to cover some financial incentives that might be available when you recruit and retain an eligible job seeker. Now, wage subsidies of up to $6,500 or $10,000 GST inclusive are available if a business employs an eligible job seeker. Some businesses use this to help meet the costs of on-the-job training for the new staff or cover costs they've already incurred while hiring. These payments can be made to your business over 6 months, but there's also a kickstart payment option of up to 40% of the total amount after 4 weeks of the job starting. Now, there are employer and job seeker eligibility requirements. However, your provider will be able to outline the relevant requirements for both potential employers who are interested as well as identifying suitable candidates that are eligible. But just broadly, to give you a bit of an idea, eligible candidates includes mature age, youth, parents, long-term unemployed and Indigenous job seekers. They'll generally have been looking for work for a specified period of time. But again, contact your provider who'll be able to identify a suitable candidate for your consideration. I'm just going to touch on what jobs must be. They can be full-time, part-time or casual. However, they do need to be an average of 20 hours per week over the 6 months of the wage subsidy agreement. They need to be ongoing and obviously work that complies with employment standards for the position. For example, suitable work that pays as a minimum the national award wage. Now, apprenticeships and traineeships are also eligible for wage subsidies, along with the other financial incentives available to employers under the Australian Apprenticeships Incentives Program. Now, as a growing industry, continually looking to attract staff into the industry, I'm actually going to turn to the Youth Jobs Path program, which aims to make it easier for businesses to find and recruit young people. This is a relatively new program. Now, our research from surveying employers tells us that work experience is key to what employers are looking for when hiring. We know that work experience is an excellent launch into work for anyone, especially young people who may lack recent work experience. The Youth Jobs Path internships will see young people gain real work experience in businesses through a voluntary internship opportunity to see if they're right for the job. Internships are intended as an opportunity to trial someone for the job. Now, as I mentioned, the internships are for businesses with a reasonable prospect of employment. For example, you might have a current vacancy, an expected vacancy at the end of the internship, or have a regular cycle of recruitment. They'll last for between 4 and 12 weeks and be between 30 to 50 hours a fortnight. Significantly, businesses benefit in taking on an intern by having the opportunity to see how a young person what they can do in the workplace and, more importantly, how they can fit within your team. Host businesses do receive a $1,000 payment in recognition of hosting the internship. And obviously, the internships can be ended at any time by any party without penalty. Now, your local provider will be able to identify eligible candidates, but broadly, what we're looking at, these are young people between 17 to 24 years old and have been looking for work for at least 6 months. The young people who participate in this program will receive a payment of $200 per fortnight on top of their income support. Internships are flexible. They're designed to suit the employer and the young person, and obviously what the role is all about. As I mentioned, the internships for between 4 and 12 weeks and for a minimum of 30 hours and a maximum of 50 hours per fortnight. There are some restrictions when placing an intern. For example, not being able to participate for more than 8 hours a day, not being able to participate on public holidays, and the intern must be provided with at least one 30-minute break every 5 hours. Internships can't displace current employees or reduce employees' hours of work. The internship really is designed around the needs of the business and the intern's skills, experience and interests. There will be an internship agreement which is entered into and signed by all 3 parties, and our providers will also undertake a work health and safety assessment of the placement prior to the internship commencing. I mentioned previously some of the financial incentives being the wage subsidies. Where an employer subsequently hires the intern, you'll be able to access a wage subsidy which provides up to $6,500 or $10,000. So just to recap, there are some of the benefits there for the host business and the young person who's actually looking for work. But probably most significantly is that you'll be providing an opportunity for a local young person who has been looking for work to actually gain a foot in the door and start a career within your industry. We actually have a Job Active blog, and you can we'll provide the links for that. And you can read the story of a young Queenslander who actually took on a Youth Jobs Path internship at the Turtle Beach Resort. So as you can see, there are a number of interns that are taking part in the program within your industry. Have a look at our website, jobactive.gov.au. On this website, you can find your local employment services provider, and you can also advertise your internship opportunity on our website as well. It's actually really quite easy to get started. First step, as I said, advertise your internship online or contact your local provider. Critically, our providers then will be able to find you the right intern. Step 3, commence the internship. And step 4, when you employ the young person, be able to access some of our wage subsidies. I thought I might also mention that obviously that if there are a group of tourism businesses in a particular region, we might also be able to develop a tailored program that's focused on your sector. There's obviously going to be some commonalities in what you're looking for. We could possibly bring together a program of employability skills training, for example, and look at particular other elements that are required within your industry. So again, feel free to contact me or any of your local providers.
Sulene, can I interrupt you there? Because we've had a couple of terrific questions come through. One of them is from Stephen, and he's asking, is there a limit to how many interns a business can take on at any one time?
There are no limits, set limits in terms of how many interns a business can take on. What's critical really is that whether there's an opportunity for employment. So for example, if you have quite a number of employment opportunities upcoming, absolutely. We'd like you to trial potential interns to take on those roles. We do monitor, obviously, what the uptake is of the interns resulting in jobs, but the intention here really is a trial for a job opportunity.
Yeah, terrific. And one more while we're on this. Stephanie, terrific question. She's asking about a couple of slides back to speaking to your point of access to wage subsidies. Yep. Stephanie's obviously got a couple of people on 457 visas. Is that something she can explore?
What we're looking at, all of our eligible candidates are looking for work and generally on income support and looking for work. So I'm happy to talk through some of the provide some additional details on that, but we're actually looking at people who are not on 457s.
Terrific. Thank you. Just a couple of questions while they came up. So back to you.
Great. Thanks. What I might turn to very briefly now is Australian Apprenticeships. This is actually provided as part of the Department of Education and Training. And most of you will be very familiar already with Australian Apprenticeships, also known as Apprenticeships and Traineeships, which are available for anyone of working age. Now, Australian Apprenticeships offer the opportunities for a person to train, study and earn an income at a variety of qualification levels in most occupations. There are a range of apprenticeships and traineeships available, obviously, for those seeking careers in the tourism industry. Now, Australian Apprenticeship Support Network providers make it easier for employers to recruit, train and retain an apprentice. They'll come to you and work with you to identify the right training for your apprentice to ensure they obtain the skills that are needed to support your business. They're also there to help make the most of the program and also the benefits that they can bring to your business. They obviously help employers navigate through the apprenticeship arrangements and ensure that apprentices get the support they need to complete their training. And the Victorian Chamber is one of the apprenticeship support providers here in Victoria, so we'll obviously be able to work closely with you to meet your needs.
Great. One other question has just come through, Celine, probably one for you from Nerily. She's asking about funding and grants to upskill existing staff with external courses and certificates. She wants to know where she can look for information on this.
So most of our programs, Nerily, are really with regards to people who are looking for work. So they're currently unemployed and they're looking for work, and that's where our focus is.
One of the opportunities might be to talk to your local business enterprise centre or your local TAFE. You'll probably find that they have a lot of low-cost opportunities to upgrade and upskill existing staff, and that could be from things like customer service. It may be a whole range of different opportunities specific to your particular business. So you may find that also the Victorian Government has some programs in that area. I think you might know some of those, Kath.
Yeah, particularly for regional businesses, I understand that the Victorian Government, through Regional Development Victoria, their Regional Jobs Fund is a potential avenue that you could go through. Again, there are criteria, but RDV in Regional Victoria is absolutely wonderful, and we can pop you in contact with the local people there to talk through that. But unfortunately, there's not a huge amount for existing workforce.
Okay.
Thanks for that. And I guess that's similar to AusIndustry. As I said, we have local providers that are spread throughout Victoria. But similarly, I have provided contact details for myself and my colleagues. We cover, if you've got any questions with regards to being connected with our local providers here in Melbourne or in Gippsland, please feel free to contact myself or my colleague, Colin Nicholson. And Karen Lavery is based in our Bendigo office, and she looks after the remainder of regional Victoria. Thank you.
So thank you, Sue-Lynn and John. As I said at the beginning, we've really just covered off the federal government support. As John said, that's your hotline number. If you've got any questions from AusIndustry, you've obviously got John and Sue-Lynn's contact details, which will be up on the next slide, as they're wonderful people. And if they're not the right people, they will put you in contact with the right people. Similarly, the Victorian Government has a very similar website and hotline where they can again put you in contact with the best person in your region. The Victorian Government has a lot of outreach networks. They've got Victorian Government business offices in suburban Melbourne who've got dedicated people, again, who can come out and talk to you about eligibility criteria, talk you through the support that they can offer you. And then in the regions, those offices are manned by Regional Development Victoria, who offer a fabulous service, very personalised. You actually get hands-on and personalised support. And then, as John mentioned at the beginning, that you've also got your local government support. So look for ask to speak to the economic development team when you call your local council. Each have them of varying different sizes, but they can often be, if you're confused, a really good first point of call and support as well. And then obviously the Chamber, the Victorian Chamber and VTIC as well.
Great. Now we have a couple of minutes for some quick fire questions that have just come through. One for you, Kath, I think you might be best placed. Robert asks, the EMDG grant, or you, John, as well. EMDG, we were talking about it going back retrospectively. How far does it go back? How far can you claim back?
Good question, Robert. I'm not the expert on that, but I think it's the previous financial year.
Yeah. So you can, at the end, coming up to the financial years, Austrade does a lot of workshops because that's the time that you claim, going back over the past financial year to claim. So keep an eye out because they do run them a lot. They are very much focused on small businesses so that you can apply for it yourself.
Great. And one final one here from Miranda. I think she's probably going to ask a question a lot of people have on their minds. Does she need to talk to a consultant about this? Is this something she's going to need some support with?
The reason that we put this together and we offer these services and these introduction services here is that there is free support out there, and we encourage you to access that free support first. And then if you want to use a consultant and access a consultant, then absolutely that's your prerogative. There is a lot of webinars and workshops I mentioned. A lot of the government programs, and I think John and Sue-Lyn can both attest to this, they want the businesses, all of the funds to go to the business to support that business to grow. And they'll try and make it as easy as possible for that small business to do that. However, in some cases, as John said, you might not be good at writing business cases, or you don't have the time to do that. It is some of the grants and support, it does take time to apply. So that's an individual choice of whether you want to do that or not.
And on the final thing I'd make about that point is, again, the hotline that we have at business.gov.au, have a talk to them. And again, have a talk to your local council. Many councils in their economic development team have grant support officers, our ASBAS providers that I mentioned, Sue-Lyn's employment providers. They can often, and our regional managers, of course, they can often look at your draft application and give you a few pointers on where you're at.
Great. Well, I think that's going to wrap us up in terms of content from our three presenters for today. So thank you, Katherine, thanks, John, and thank you, Sue-Lyn, for your time and all your content today. It's been terrific. Before I let you guys go, would like to remind you of our final webinar for the year, which is happening on Wednesday, the 13th of December. Verticom, our member, are going to be talking about 360 virtual wayfinding, virtual tours, and virtual reality marketing. So a whole new frontier for me and hopefully a lot of you. That should be really interesting. So tune in for that one. Now, turning our attention to some upcoming VTIC events. Tomorrow night is the 2017 RACV Victorian Tourism Awards Gala ceremony. A lot of you will be coming down to Melbourne for that one, so really excited to catch up with you all there. I have heard from Mike Hamilton that there are a few select tickets still available, so if you would like to come down and be part of it, please give me a call, 86625343, and we will slot you in. One of the more anticipated events on the calendar, the VTIC AGM, is happening this time next week, or this day next week, 4:30 to 5:30 p.m. Would love to see as many of our members there as possible. That's down at the Melbourne Convention and Exhibition Centre. And then to wrap up the year, we have the Tourism Industry Christmas Party. Happening on a Monday night, but don't let that put you off, 11th of December, happening at the fabulous venue Metropolis down on South Bank. So that should be terrific. That is all from us today. Thanks everyone again for your time and involvement. Signing off from VTIC, improving the world one webinar at a time.